Welcome to the Kickass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife.
In 26 years together, we've seen a lot and never thought it could be as good as it is right now. We're here to help you successfully navigate the messy, dirty, and wonderful world of marriage.
We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week, we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
We'll get started right after this message.
If you want to learn how to experience the best, most fulfilling year of your marriage, we invite you to order Matthew's new book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. You can get it at Amazon.com or visit Matthew's website, www.matthewphoffman.com. Again, that's Amazon.com or www.matthewphoffman.com. And now, back to the show.
Welcome to episode 18 of the Kickass Couples Podcast. We are here with Tracy and Mark Russell. I had the privilege of meeting Tracy through a friend that we both have known for a long time. And so we just recently came to know each other through this mutual friend. And I'm so excited to have both of you here. Tracy is an author, she is a speaker, and a fellow podcaster. And so they have a beautiful, redeeming story, and we're really excited to have them here so that we can kind of get in and learn more about what makes you all a kick-ass couple.
So excited to have you guys here today. Thank you for agreeing to do it. And this is the first, actually the second. We interviewed one other podcaster, a couple, Joseph Warren. He has 2 top 100 podcasts in Tampa. So it's fun to have somebody who knows the ropes a little bit, and I'm sure we'll get to learn from you today. So I think Kim's going to kick it off here with our first question.
So I want to know, and either one of you can take this question first, but what do you think makes you a kick-ass couple?
Ooh, that's a good one. Do you want to take that question first? What makes us a kick-ass couple?
Sure. I just think we've in the face of adversity been able to work through a lot of things. I mean, just really over the past 10 years, there's been so many things in our lives that, I think could and would be the downfall of other couples. We're just always trying to grow in those processes as individuals and as a couple. And, God willing, we've been successful in doing that.
Yeah, to put that a little more bluntly, I knew this question was coming. And when I told my friends about this question coming this weekend, they were like, well, what are you going to say? And I said, well, there have been so many situations that could have kicked our ass. I mean, literally, that were ass-kicking situations that, by the grace of God, I feel like a kick-ass couple is someone who is able to see that adversity and kick back and come out stronger and better and have a more solid marriage and relationship on the other side. And so for that reason, it's not that we're the perfect couple. It's not that we're what other word? Perfect. It's not that we're like, that we have it all together. It's just that we've kicked through together, and with God as absolutely the one busting down the door and us grabbing hands and running through.
We're committed.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
is the word. I'd love to say, hey, another answer. My initial thought was because we both kite surf.
Yeah.
Ooh,
but which is pretty awesome.
That's a fun fact. That's cool.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome extreme sport, but truthfully, it's more the commitment to each other, in adversity.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Well, those are two great answers that both ring true in our book, and I think we're going to talk about some of those qualities and that commitment a little bit later. But we're a firm belief. Kim and I both believe that you kind of have to go back sometimes to go forward. And one of the things that we'd like to hear from each of you and share with us is that we'd like to know, what did love look like for you all growing up in your families? So what did it look like in your household? What did you see from your parents? And what was each of your individual experiences, and then obviously how did those come together in your marriage?
Yeah. I mean, I'll take a stab at that first because Mark and I had very similar families, and we had very average, loving homes, no divorce, very whole families. And so maybe we went into marriage thinking it was easy because we really hadn't seen hard, or at least our parents weren't bringing us into a lot of hard things. So I would say we grew up we both grew up in Miami, Florida, and just had kind of a common growing up years, a happy childhood, a very steady mother and father relationship. Would you agree to that?
I do. And I agree to the hard part. I think that we were, at least I was sheltered from hard, my parents were amazing. They always helped out in things. And I didn't have a lot of hard things to deal with growing up. And I agree with Tracy that once we were married, there are, differences you got to work through with people, deeper level differences than the surface level of non-marriage relationships.
Sure.
And stuff.
Yeah. And I think our parents made it look easy, although it probably wasn't. But we weren't brought in on the full level of commitment, I think, until our wedding day. And that's when it was the game changer for us.
Yeah,
so
sure.
One thing I'll add about my parents is they were always there. It was never about them. It was truly about others. And I don't know, I think I've inherited that. And I get a lot more joy out of giving to others, Tracy, to our kids, to others around us than I get out of getting things for myself, to be honest with you.
Sure.
It's just more fun.
Sure. Yeah.
It sounds like you both had a very positive or had positive role models in both of your families. So give me an example of what love looked like, Tracy, in your household.
Oh, well, I definitely think my parents had that spark of romance, and it was, my dad was still my mom's hero and was mine growing up. And he was a airline pilot, so he traveled a lot. He was an Olympic athlete, so he was winning awards. He was diving. He was doing all these cool things that most people's dads didn't do. I think I was the only person in Miami, Florida that had a 3-meter and a 1-meter diving board in my backyard in a lake. So it just was this, kind of fun-filled adventure for my parents. And I think that's where I got the notion that I was going to get married and it was going to be, traveling and trips and, all of this idealism kind of around relationships, because I think because my dad traveled so much, he was all on, or then he was off, or a lot of our family vacations were traveling all over. And I didn't live the 9-to-5 mom and dad relationship. It was fun and excitement, and then it was home and all those different things. And so, I think that kind of set me up with an unrealistic expectation of what married life was really going to be like. And so, I don't know what you would have to say. What did love look like to you? So I think love was going to look like an adventure, romantic trips and dinners, and making world impact together or something like that. So
we were the more, more traditional, like very very normal family. My dad was a police officer, mom was a nurse, and our big trip growing up wasn't flying all over the world like Tracy. It was, loading up the station wagon and going to Washington, D.C. That's the only big trip that I remember. Where Tracy comes from. Yeah, I went to Australia. Dad called me. He flew me to New York last weekend, and I look at Tracy coming into the marriage as more her wings were clipped.
Yeah,
because she didn't have that free airline ticket anymore. And my mind was kind of expanded into a little bit more travel with her and stuff like that. And I got into a travel and sales job and global responsibilities there. So I travel quite a bit now, but I guess from my parents' perspective, it wasn't as flashy or romantic, I don't think, but they were always there together, always holding hands, always, present. I mentioned present for us, they were present for each other. Even today, they go out for drives, just to go drive for an hour and talk, things like that. Just local stuff, not, an hour flight here or there, but it's been kind of that type of a romance that I've looked at between them.
Yeah. Well, there's 13 pillars that we believe make a successful marriage. And we really focus on 3. We call those the 3 C's. Mm-hmm. And that is commitment first, communication, and conflict resolution. So I want to talk a little bit about commitment and what that looks like in your relationship. And Mark, maybe you want to take that first. What does commitment look like to you?
Commitment is, really goes back to what I was talking about earlier. It's, a lot of people, maybe earlier in my life, it was based more on the fun, the good, but it's more, I think it's more of a balanced approach to, being aware that, hey, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be struggles, there's going to be hurdles, there's going to be awesome moments, there's going to be, incredibly challenging moments. But from a marriage standpoint, commitment is really regardless, working through it, regardless, approaching it with humility, which I don't always do, and I don't always, but ultimately I strive to do those things. And commitment, in marriage for Tracy and I is never using the D word, the divorce word. That's not an option. Okay. When truly earlier in life it was, and we've grown into that.
I would just, to me, when you say what is commitment, I think of commitment is the invisible foundation of every home that is there, that's holding it up. And maybe you see the outside fancy pillars, or you notice the style of the house, but the honest truth is the integrity of that foundation is holding everything up. And so earlier in our life, in our first marriage, there wasn't that commitment level, and the house collapsed. So for me, that word commitment is that lifetime foundation that holds the whole house together. And without it, it's a house on the sand. It's a house of cards, and it's going to go away. So I love that that's one of your top C's, because I think that's really huge.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we were seeing in our family. It was that invisible thread in our parents. It was that invisible thread in our grandparents, and that foundation. But I think it was what God was going to have to build for us. He was going to let the relationship without the commitment fall, and then he was going to rebuild the marriage that we've had for the last 23 years, the new marriage, with the solid foundation. And I'm so grateful for that foundation.
And just for the listeners, that first marriage was to each other as well.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that. I know, again, you have a really beautiful story. You had a couple of years where maybe that commitment didn't look so great, and now you have come full circle for the last 23 years. And that commitment is strong, and it's ever present. Tell our listeners a little bit.
What was the difference? I'd love, like when we look at commitment in the first versus where it is now, what do you all see as the differences between those two things?
All those C's were in place, right? Like a new wedding, you think all of those things are just magically going to appear. But on our wedding day, right as we're leaving the reception and I'm shaking the rice out of my hair and we're boarding, going to our honeymoon, I looked over at Mark, and a look just kind of clouded his face. And I knew at that moment that something was really wrong. And as we went into our romantic night together and everything, I knew something was still wrong again. And so finally on the honeymoon cruise, I looked at him and I said, "What's wrong?" I finally worked up the nerve, and he said, "I don't know if we should have been married." And with that sentence right there, the commitment was not there. The vows were said. There were 250 guests present. I pledged my whole life, my whole security, my whole love to a person, but that foundation wasn't present. And at that point, that was the scariest moment of my entire life, because it exposed that invisible foundation that was always there for me and the relationships around me, but I didn't have that with the man that I wanted to love. And so God was going to, he's so faithful to us to show us what's lacking in our marriages, and faithful to walk us through painful processes that result in purpose-filled relationships. And that was a hard beginning. That was a hard fall. That was a kick in the ass, right? That was the first kick. But did you have anything you wanted to say about that moment of just?
No. Well, yes, I do. I think I would sum it up as what it looked like was commitment to self, me. Okay. Truly, my life was about me. And, that led to really a lot of the results and destruction of our marriage, right out of the gate. And I can tell you, though, when our marriage was restored, it wasn't commitment to me. It was commitment to Christ. It was commitment to my wife, to my son, and then our future kids and so forth. But really, my whole mindset changed from self to others that I should be committed to. So it was really giving up that commitment of self.
Well, and I think the marriage kind of triggered whatever, I heard someone say, take whatever fault you have before you're married and magnify it by 100, and that's going to be your marriage. And I think I had, right before we were married, worked through my faith in a deep way with God and was ready for that next step. It doesn't mean that I was perfect or I was, the strong one in the marriage at that point, but I had been humbled and was ready to do things God's way. So I was ready for that foundation. I wanted it built on the rock. And I think in Mark's life, it exposed that commitment. I think it just scared you, it overwhelmed you. And I think it brought out, God allowed that to bring out, okay, Mark, are you going to do life my way? Or are you going to do life your way? Yeah. And doing our life our own way in marriage is really painful. I mean, even today, I will say at that point, it was pretty devastational, because once he kind of was in that, I remember you used to say it was just like a fog. You were in a fog and you couldn't get out of it. And so there was no pulling him back. And, that just really, 3 months into marriage, I'm trying to make things work and I'm trying to pull him in. I'm trying to do all of the pillars, all of the 13, just try anything possible. And I found out in the midst of that, we were pregnant, and 3 months into marriage to already have a crumbling commitment and now bring a child in. And Mark was saying, I don't know if I can be a dad either. I don't know if I can be a husband. I don't know if I can be a dad either. And so it was just kind of one loss after another. And finally, after about 2.5 years of that, I had read a book called Love Must Be Tough. And it was written by James Dobson. And he basically was speaking to someone like me that desperately wanted to be married, that wanted to live their marriage vows, but I was going to have to let Mark go. If that commitment was not there, if he didn't want to be in marriage to me, then you're free to go. They open the door and let them go. And so that's what happened. And, I think that was the toughest thing I ever did, because like I told you all, I idolized marriage. I mean, it was going to be the white picket fence, and this was my prince and the horse and the whole thing, and I didn't want to give up that dream. But God also humbled me in the process and became my first love, because I realized I could hold on to my faith and God was going to be there every step of the way. And so that's really when the change started happening, was after tough love.
Those are great examples, and thank you all for being real and sharing that. And Mark, what I heard you say that just stuck in the back of my head, I want to let our listeners know, it sounds like the first time you're saying I was pretty self-full. I was full of myself, and that the difference is you became selfless. And you're dedicated to the us. We talk about there's I, there's you, right? And there's us. And the us, a win for the us, is that selflessness and being willing to do those things that may not feel great to you or that you may not really want to do, but it's what's needed at that time. And so I loved you sharing that fact, and I heard you on that, and I just wanted to let you know I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I would definitely say that when we were remarried and when I feel like God gave us such an amazing second chance, I don't feel like I married the same person and just like patched up, banged up version. I truly believe that I saw with my own two eyes, it was almost like a dead man coming to life. And scripture says, if any man be in Christ, he's a new creation. And it was like when God gave us a second chance, and I saw the life come back into Mark's eyes, and I saw him, owning everything and apologizing and being profusely cussed out by our friends, but just saying I was wrong, I was so wrong, but don't trust me, trust Christ in me. God's done something in me, and I want to be the husband and father, and just selflessly giving me everything and patiently believing that God was going to change my heart too and soften it. And so I remember when we finally did get remarried, the first thing we did was we went to church together, and we went to Davis Island Baptist Church together. It was our first Sunday as husband, wife, remarried for the second time, and our son. And that foundation started. What a difference between the day when I thought the foundation was starting and it crumbled, and the day when the rest of the world would have probably been looking at us like, what losers, they have to get remarried again. They went through all this stuff, but like God loved us so much that he started the foundation in the middle of a complete mess. And that foundation that nobody would look at and say, that's amazing, that one has held 23 years. And so I am gratefully married to Mark, and I see him doing that selfless giving and the way our kids love him and the way we've been able to have a second chance together and enjoy so many of the sweet things of marriage, because there's so many good things when you do have those things in place.
There are a lot of
we've had a lot of
tender moments for sure.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about you've been remarried, and the second of our 3 C's is communication, which we believe is a huge one as well.
Yeah.
Tell me how you started to communicate with each other. What did communication look like in your relationship? Did you communicate well? Did you have to learn how to communicate? Tell our listeners a little bit about what that looked like.
Yeah.
So I think we're always learning how to communicate.
Right.
Honestly, I'm 53 years old, and I've learned a few things at work today on communication. So I think it's an ongoing process, but I think success is where people really are willing to admit faults, own them, and try to work through them. And I'm not as gifted of a communicator as Tracy is. She loves talking, expressing her emotions, that kind of thing. That's just not me. But I am where I used to try to, pull, to do it my way. I try to reach a middle ground, and maybe it's just a little bit less of a ground than I would have stood in the past. But from a communication standpoint,
I think when we first remarried, though, we were both very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we had been brought down so low that I think even you and I both were communicating so openly and honestly, because we didn't have secrets. We knew all the flaws. Like we were so vulnerable and so wanting to build trust again that we had to work through things. And I would say we really built that back really strong.
Yeah.
And I would say we had like this span of golden years when we started adding kids and all this stuff. I think where communication gets hard is around that, like when we started getting older kids and life started getting really busy again. And I think around the like 15, 20 year mark was when, we've had to like work on our skills again, because what got us here isn't going to keep us going. So it's like what got us here was, all those things and young kids, and we're managing all that. But now it's more of the two of us, it's more togetherness. And so we have more room to grow in deeper communication. And I mean, I think we definitely want that.
Yeah.
We can have more togetherness, but it's not going to look like it did when we were young.
Yeah. We did communicate a lot more, right when we were remarried we were pretty transparent at that time. I was very transparent with, a lot of things that I was struggling with, sin issues that I had, and, not just with Tracy, but, very transparent with friends, in that time and process. But, I think also we've really, and trust me, I'm not perfect at any of this. I'm just someone that's going through the process. And, even when we've had major hurdles, in our life, deaths of loved ones, addictions of loved ones, near death experiences, with addictions, stuff like that, of people that we love, we've worked with them and ultimately worked on ourselves in that process too, because I can tell you that things like that can bring out a lot of anger in me. It can bring out a lot of emotion, and I can't be good to anyone else, to Tracy, to my kids, to anyone, unless I am healing through that same hurdle that we're going through as others are. So, in those times, we've also, tried to up our game and, through counseling, with communication and just personalizing things like, how can I be of better value to these people in our lives that are hurting, as opposed to reacting to it,
Just to give a little context to what he's saying too, just so your listeners know. So we had the reconciliation. We were remarried for probably 12 years, and we lost our nephew. We had taken our nephew out for a boating adventure, water skiing on his 10-year-old birthday, Mark and I, and Mark is an avid water sports lover. And about 9 days later, my nephew got incredibly sick, and he ended up passing away 2 days later at 10 years old. And we thought that he had died from meningitis, but an autopsy revealed about 5 weeks later that my nephew had contracted an amoeba, the brain-eating amoeba, from our lake and from our day at the lake on his 10-year-old birthday. And so when that happened, once again, you're looking at two people that we had been a major hurdle early on, our own marriage. But in that moment where we were staring down death, loss of my nephew, it made statewide news, and it was repeating over and over again. Philip died when he was with his cousins and his uncle on his face. It was truly like, I looked at Mark and I saw that same look in him of just like, Mark is such a fierce defender and protector, and we loved Philip like our own son, that I was like, we are fighting this together. We are not going to lose each other in this, because that hurdle that we had gone through early in our marriage, I knew what it took to keep that foundation strong. I knew what it took. And I think we fought together, as best we could, because the world felt like it was crumbling. But again, that's one of those things that could have just kicked us.
I think we fought together. I totally agree. And I think that we fought as individuals for ourselves in that too, because honestly, there were some very unhealthy things, that I was doing just because I didn't know how to handle this horrific situation, where we physically sat in a hospital and watched him die for 3 days, and the feelings of regret, remorse, being shameful.
Or like all the survivor's guilt.
Yeah, survivor's guilt. And, it was on my watch. That was one of those, the loss of a dream of living on a lake. There's so much loss. Our kids were into water sports. Our oldest son competed in a national wakeboard circuit. He wasn't, we weren't football players and stuff. Right. So it's like the dream of the water was gone with this death. And most importantly, I lost my nephew. who I absolutely loved, and definitely that brought out a lot of unhealthiness in me as an individual, and the way I reacted to Tracy and communicated, and the way that I reacted to others. I tend to turn inside as opposed to outward, like Tracy just communicates and gets it all out and stuff. That's not me. I focus inward, and you talk about commitment. In order to really get through things like that, I mean,
it took us
we sought counseling.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like I can get through it. The fact is we realized that we couldn't. Mm-hmm. And there's been other situations, tough situations in our life where we couldn't get through it alone, mm-hmm. and we eventually healed to some degree within ourselves so that we could better commit mm-hmm. to and better communicate with others.
I think the counseling part is really invaluable, and I love when couples bring that up, because I think it's really great for our listeners to hear that it doesn't mean we're weak. It means that we're acknowledging that this foundation, it's starting to crumble a little bit. And you all have had a lot of trauma surrounding your relationship and in your family. And when you seek counseling, it really does help to ground you again and to pull you back together. And it gives you the tools that you need to recover.
Right.
And it's self-care too. I think that counseling historically, that's for crazy people or nuts or you're weak, right? If you can't do it without somebody. And today, I think we're giving ourselves permission. It's self-care. It's good for individually and for the couple. And I think everybody needs it in some level, because you're not aware of all your own blind spots. It's really difficult to self-diagnose and go, well, I have a problem with this and I need to address it. And sometimes you don't even know what you don't know. And and I love hearing the fact that, Kim and I have gotten help and support in our relationship to make it stronger. It's an investment. It's an investment in self and an investment in the relationship. And so I'm glad that you all agree with us and are advocating that for others as well.
I mean, it's worth fighting for. And, right after Philip died, my mother died about 6 months later. And I didn't know how to grieve. Like I told you, I just kind of came from this real simple family life where nothing really hard happened. And I had to learn how to grieve and how to, as a Christian, even though I have all this faith and I know God can get us through anything, I had to be okay not being okay and be sad and learn how to walk through and dose pain so it didn't overwhelm me. I had to learn actual skills. And for me, I just felt like it was probably the best thing that ever happened, because I didn't like it. I wouldn't want that, but I feel like it caused in me a greater empathy for other people that struggle, and to know that there are ways to get through things together and not apart. And that's a process. That's something you learn. We actually went to a place called the Bethany Center for Grieving Children, and we did a family camp where they taught you how to come together to grieve and not go apart. Sure. And so those are just skills. We often don't learn those sitting in church. For all those years, we learn a lot of great things, but those higher level coping skills and communication skills and dealing with the hard things of life, they're worth fighting for, and they make us better. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
When it comes to creating a kick-ass marriage, do you ever wonder what you could be doing better? Have you ever thought how helpful it would be to be a part of a like-minded community of other imperfect couples who want to level up in their number one relationship? Come visit Kickass Couples Nation, where you can talk with people just like you who are looking for ways to invest in and increase their joy, commitment, and fulfillment in their most important human relationship. You'll have access to a team of licensed marriage therapists, coaches, articles, podcasts, live webinars, and more. Just visit MatthewPHoffman.com so you can learn more about a community that's ready to help you level up. That's MatthewPHoffman.com so you can become of the growing Kick-Ass Couples Nation right now. So we're going to move on to our third C, which is conflict resolution. And as you all know, there's things in relationships, right, that you guys see things differently. And so when those things arise and when you all may not be on the same page or you're working through something, what does conflict resolution look like in your relationship, and how have the two of you learned that dance to be effective in your own relationship?
Yeah, this is the one where we're at right now at 53 years old. This is an interesting one. This is the one that I think I am like a certified adjuster, fixer, changer. And so I'm like conflict avoidant at times. I don't like conflict.
And I'm a jumper into action.
Yeah.
Head on.
Yeah.
Right away.
Grab the horns, right, Mark?
I'm feeling this way. And he's like, what do you want me to do about it? I'm like, I don't want you to do anything.
This is what you need to do.
I know. I'm like, wait, that's not going to solve the problem. And so, yeah, we're working through that.
And I think it's really just, it's once again, so yes, a lot of work in that area for us right now. Mm-hmm. And I think we're successful though, when we truly try to understand each other. And I mean, at a deeper level, not the surface level that I'm seeing reactions or Tracy's seeing reactions, but what's the deeper level thing that's really going on? Because whenever sometimes I get frustrated because I'm like, get to the point. And Tracy's saying one thing, but that is completely irrelevant to really what's going on inside of her. It's kind of the output, but what's going on may be something, completely different. It comes and a lot of times, I interpret things that, wow, she's attacking me, because she's upset. She's, it's like barking at me or something. And I'm like, or purring, whatever. But, and I take it defensively or personally, because of her tone that she's speaking to me at, but realistically that it's not about me, and a lot of times I think we communicate a lot better when I separate from the situation. I don't make it about myself. Mm-hmm. I just truly empathetically make it about her and digging in and peeling the onion back to see what the real root cause is, as opposed to what that surface level, whatever reaction is.
Yeah. If I'm being really honest, I'm really starting to understand attachment and attachment styles in conflict. And so, like I said, for many years, I went around a problem, or I solved a problem over here while Mark solved a problem over there. And if we had to come together, it was like, just kind of, I think, especially having kids, I was doing this and he was doing work. But I think where I am right now is that to develop that secure attachment is to bring your whole self again, to be vulnerable, just like we were in the beginning, and to own needs, to be able to communicate a need without him feeling blamed, to be able to connect on that emotional level, which is the stuff of humanity. That's the real stuff, the stuff that's messy, but to be able to go there together and not blame one another for that, but accept it and understand the person rather than give the solution or judge. And so that right now is what we're working on in conflict, is to listen better, because talkers tend to not be listeners. So I need to work on listening more and understanding.
I think for me, we were at dinner the other night, and she was upset about something, and I couldn't get to the bottom of it. And she said, "Just coach me, just ask me questions." So the whole dinner, I just asked her questions. I didn't try to offer a solution. It was like I was peeling the onion back. Sure. Oh, yeah, well, why do you feel that way? How does that make sense to you? And honestly, she lightened up through dinner just because, I didn't have solutions. And really, I was just digging deeper into truly understand her heart and that, as opposed to the initial solution.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, it sounds like what I hear you saying, Mark, is that you've learned how to become a good investigator, right? Asking those questions, seeking to understand, not offering a solution, but really just engaging with her and understanding. And I think that's, there's this statistic that Kim and I are aware of. I don't know if you all knew that 69% of all issues in a relationship are not solvable. So that really means that we can only truly solve about a third of what comes up, then you go, okay, well, if we're not solving it, what's happening? Well, we're understanding. Right. It's just, let me understand you, why you feel that way, where you come from. Oh my gosh, it must really suck to feel that way right now.
Right.
I'd feel horrible too. What can we do to change that? What can we do to get you thinking this the way you normally are? Right. It's really building that relationship, not offering a solution, and just you're increasing the level of communication, commitment, of trust. And it sounds like you guys are figuring that dance out. And it's never a skill that, hey, we figured it out and we're great at it. Oh man, we're chipping away at it every single day. Every day. Yeah. It's that like,
it's interesting that you said it. So 31% of those are solvable, it sounds like, and 69 aren't.
Right.
And with that said, where am I going with this? You'll have to maybe edit this part out.
No worries.
But I think that you mentioned the 69%, but the other 31% are probably the ones that I would personally attach more to or relate more to, because there is a solution and I can take action as a guy. Mm-hmm. And the 69%, it's like, why are we even talking about that if there isn't a solution?
Right.
That's kind of where I come from.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that that's the right place to come from, but from my perspective, and maybe other men can relate to that, if we can't find a solution to something, my mind reverts quickly to, why are we even talking about it?
Mm-hmm. But I think you're getting better at listening.
I am.
And
I'm trying.
Questions and investigating.
I'm definitely trying. That's not the other night when we were at dinner, when I did that, I don't always do that, but Tracy specifically said, and I appreciated her just, instead of just going through the motions, saying, hey, hon, this is what I need. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times I don't know what she needs. I really don't. And I want to be there for her. I want to ask the right questions. I want to listen, but sometimes I think she wants solutions. So guidance is helpful.
Sure, that goes back to the communication part, right? I feel like we have to be able to express to each other what we need in those moments. Okay, you didn't need a solution. You didn't need for him to speak. You just needed to say it, right? You needed to dialogue it, and I feel like for women, that's an important. That's really important that we can be in a space where we can speak and just put it out there. And I saw Matthew shaking his head, Mark, when you were saying, I don't even know what she needs right now. And I don't even think it's about me, but it's, I'm feeling a little bit attacked, but I'm just going to, take a breath and let her get it out, and all will be well.
Yeah. I do love what you guys are doing, though, because I do think there should be like a mandatory communication class before you get married and a teach your future husband how to cook class. So if we can get the communication and the cooking class, if you guys can do that, I think that'd be great.
Most guys like to grill. I don't even like to grill. I'm a gratification now, type A personality. And, cooking is not my best.
That's okay. Well, we all have things we need. We're all sculptors working at different forms. I think, trying to carve different things out.
You can see I just noticed the sun is starting to set.
I know. I'm not sorry about that.
Sorry.
No worries. So we have 13 pillars that we believe make a successful marriage. We talked about 3 of them. And do you all have the pillars available to you right now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Because if not, I can pull it up if it's helpful. Okay.
So, Tracy, of the remaining pillars, is there one there that really resonates with you, that stands out to you, that's most important?
Yes. Number 7, lucky 7, lasting love. I had the privilege of, when my mom passed away, I saw my dad come in to that room and give her final kiss and tell her he loved her. And I watched a man live his vows till death do us part for 48 years. She always wanted that number 50. And that was the greatest gift ever given to me, to know that my parents had lasting love. And that it lasts in a world that's very temporary, in a world that we have a plastic version, I think, of relationships in Hollywood and on movies. It's not the real thing. And I think once you see the real thing and you see that lasting love, I pray that I give that gift to my children. And I'm so grateful, because I think I wouldn't want to do lasting love with anyone else but Mark. And that's a treasure. That's a gift. So lasting love, number 7.
All right.
How about you, Mark? Which one of those stands out to you?
Said that so eloquently.
I know, it's beautiful.
No, you can you pick one. I thought of one for you.
But well, yeah, it's okay.
No, I always thought you were going to do that. That was you.
You know, I guess I'm just thinking from a guy's perspective, at least from my perspective, you know, appreciation is big to me. You know, coming home from work and feeling appreciated, just with those types of things. I don't want pat on the backs, but it is nice to get a little attaboy occasionally, you know, from Tracy or from the kids, you know, just knowing how, you know, I think, you know, as the provider of the family, I think that, wow, it's just nice to be recognized by that.
That's gratitude,
but I do
right?
agree with
that's gratitude. That's gratitude expressed, appreciation, right? It's kind of like hearing the gratitude and recognition.
Yeah. And you know, I look at Tracy though also from an appreciation standpoint, and you know, she's not the breadwinner of the family. She, you know, but we have chosen, you know, for her for a lot of her adult life to stay home with the kids and stuff. And you know, as I say, hey, I'd like appreciation. Honestly, I'm a little bit convicted, because you know, I know that I can appreciate her more for the things that she does. You know, and they may not have a financial amount tied to them, but they have like eternal value, which is actually more value than the paychecks that I bring home. Truly, you know, the time that she's committed to, the career that she's given up for our kids. So I don't know, maybe a balance of appreciation there.
Sure. Okay. So I want to ask you guys, we're going to ask you to go back, and Mark, I want you to answer this first, and I want you to think of, if you could put your hands on your shoulders of your unmarried self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
That is a good question.
And you can dub out some of my thought process.
Absolutely.
I don't want to just jump into that one.
Or if you want to think of it, and Tracy, you can answer the question first if you like. Tracy, if you had to go back and give your unmarried self one piece of advice and say, hey, listen, if I could tell you one thing, this is what it's going to be, what would that be?
It's going to hurt, but it's going to be worth it. And, you know, the pain is going to be worth God's purpose in your life. And the trials, the hard times, are going to produce a faith that you can't dream or imagine. It's like worth it. And yeah, that's probably what I would be saying. Like, it's worth it. You know, that's probably what I'd say.
Yeah. But, and I wouldn't want to dishearten anyone, but I think it's going to be a lot more work. We talked about communication. We talked about all these things than you expect, and than you could ever expect. Truly, I think our marriage has been a lot more work, but I think the reward is exponentially more than you can ever expect. You got to put the work into it, just like anything in life.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you both for taking the time to be with us today. You guys have an incredible story. You have a lasting love of 25 years and still still going strong. And so we're grateful that you were willing to open up and share with us and with our listeners about what makes you all kick ass. So thank you so much for that, for showing up and for being vulnerable. Tracy, where can we find you if we want to know more about you, if we want to listen to your podcast, tell us where we can find you on social media.
You can contact me at tracylynnrussell.com. And my podcast is called The Heart of the Story with Tracy Lynn Russell. And I'm on iTunes and Spotify and all those good places. But basically, if anyone wants to reach me, there's just a contact me on tracylynnrussell.com.
Awesome.
That's the easiest way.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate you all being open with us and sharing today. And it's definitely true that happily ever after does not just happen. It's an investment in work, and you guys are doing the work and the investment, and it's going to continue to pay rewards. That's obvious when we hear what you've shared and how you're working with each other. So thank you for sharing with our listeners, and we look forward to speaking with you guys again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Kickass Couples Podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's newly released book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com, and we'll get it over to you right away. Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.